Let me just ask a couple questions before we get going. Number one, is there anybody here that's never been here before? And can you tell us who you are?
Tim Markle.
And how'd you hear about us?
I was at lunch yesterday and sat next to a guy that's been here.
Okay.
Larry Grossbo.
Okay,
And
well,
I got an email from Bob.
Okay, anybody else? Thought I saw a hand over here. Anyway, we have meetings every Wednesday. We have classes in January, February, and March. If you're interested in joining the group, you can go to our website, or our treasurer will be here in a few minutes, and he has applications. Today we have a very special guest speaker, Carrie Kerskie. Carrie, I think this is your third trip here. Right. And if you read the announcement, Carrie's the Director of Identity Fraud Institute at Hodges. And she's also an author, a speaker, and identity theft expert. And we welcome you. Thank you for coming again. And that's all I do.
Okay. I apologize for my hoarse voice. I'm a little under the weather. I don't know if it's cold or allergies from all the wonderful debris we have. So I apologize. I'll try my best. So if you're in the back and you can't hear me, you might have to move up a little bit. Wanted to talk about, with a lot of the concerns about the Equifax breach, and of course there's all the Irma and disaster-related fraud scams, and of course we just heard Pizza Hut had a breach, and there are other companies out there. Since about 2 days before Irma, when the news of the Equifax breach happened, my phone and email have been nonstop. People questioning, what do we do, what do we do, what are the steps? So we figured we'd discuss that today. If I had to tell you everything you needed to do, we'd be in this room for many months. But we'll go over some of the major things, and then I want to open it up to your questions to see if there's anything specific. Now for the question part, you can raise your hand at any time, just as long as it's a general question. If you have something that's specific to a situation, your personal situation, we can talk afterwards, okay? And before I forget, there is a little handout. These are some of the workshops that we offer over at the Identity Fraud Institute. That's our 2017-2018 schedule. Up here at the front, I didn't have enough for everybody. This is the Center for Lifelong Learning. It's another educational opportunity over at Hodges University, and this is their fall schedule, so you can grab one of those. If there's some of the information that I mentioned and you want additional information on it, just come up here and give me your name and your email address, and I'll send over the documentation to you. Okay? So I wanted to get all that out of the way so I didn't forget. So first let's talk about with the Equifax breach. How many of you in here think that you are not impacted by the Equifax breach? Good. No hands. My hand. Okay. Yeah, I've actually even had questions from people such as, I've never opened an account with them, do I need to be concerned? Yes, you don't have to open an account with Equifax for them to have your information. If you've ever had a loan, a mortgage, a credit card, there's a chance they have your information. I believe the last number I saw was about 143 million people were estimated to be impacted by this. If I had to guess, I think that number would be much higher, because anytime there's a breach, they have to do their investigation, and later on we find out there's even more that were involved. So, you know, if you haven't received notification or anything yet, I stress the word yet. Okay. So what information was compromised? Well, all the crucial stuff. Name, address, date of birth, social security numbers, some driver's license numbers. Basically, anything that a criminal would need to become you. This could be applying for loans. This could be basically anything that they wanted to do, applying for Social Security benefits, Medicare, I mean, insurance, you name it, they can do whatever they want with it. Okay? So this is going to be a huge, huge impact to everyone for quite some time. Now, I know there's a website out there that, and you probably got emails from your bank and your credit card company saying, here's what you should do. Some of the information is good, some of the information is not so good. So the first thing to tell you to do is go to this website, enter all your sensitive information, and see if you were breached. Well, I always like to test things because I don't take things at face value. And I entered in completely made up name and social security number. And guess what? It came back saying your information was probably compromised. And it wasn't even a real person. So I don't trust the validity of that website. Then when I entered my information or my husband's, because I make us guinea pigs, he just doesn't know it yet. When I entered our information, one came back saying, yes, you were exposed, the other one saying we weren't. But again, the totally made up guy said that he was exposed, and it's not even a real person. Okay? So again, don't go by that website. If you entered your information and it said that you probably were not impacted, don't believe it. Assume that you were. All right? And then the other problem that happened with Equifax is when they started promoting out on social media, like Twitter and everywhere else about the website to go to, they actually put the wrong website. So people were going to a spoofed website. Fortunately, the people who created the spoofed website did it just as a test, and it was not, they weren't up to no good. It wasn't a criminal ring. But they were just testing to see how easy it would be for people to go to the wrong website. And then, of course, Equifax started promoting the wrong one instead of the right one. So they had a lot of issues. Yeah. The next thing that they do is that if you were impacted, they're offering a year or so worth of free credit monitoring. And it's through, what's the company? I think Trusted ID or something? Well, who owns that company? Equifax. So you're going to now trust the people who just exposed all your information to monitor and tell you when there's a problem. How many of you want to do that? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Just because it's free doesn't mean it's a good option. Okay. So what we're going to talk about some other things that you can do instead. One of them would be a credit freeze. Now, before I get into a credit freeze, let me back up. I need to define some terminology because this is where a lot of people get confused, and the credit bureaus do it on purpose. Federal law mandates when you're a victim of identity theft, you can place a free 90-day fraud alert on your credit reports. All you do is call one bureau. They automatically notify the other two on your behalf. Okay? It's free for 90 days. Well, what is a fraud alert? All it is a disclaimer. It's a statement that goes on your credit report that basically requests that the creditors or potential creditors verify the identity before opening the new account. And you can even have the option of putting your phone number. So the creditor is supposed to call you before a new account gets opened. But here's the thing. They're not required by law to do it. It's a suggestion. The creditors don't have to follow it. And when you look at the credit reports where they put this alert, it's in different places on the different reports. Very easy to miss. Okay? So while it was created just to kind of give you 90 days until you could get your ducks in a row in the event you're a victim of identity theft, it was never meant to be it was never meant to be a permanent solution. Right? And it's only good for 90 days. After 90 days, it goes away. I can't tell you how many people over the years that when my husband loves when we're somewhere and somebody says, oh, what do you do for a living? He rolls his eyes and goes, oh, here we go. Of course, I tell them, and they're like, oh, I was a victim. Everyone has a story. And then with the story, it turns into, well, yeah, it was 5 years ago, but I took care of it. What'd you do? I put that fraud alert on. My credit's locked down now. I said, do you realize that expired after 90 days? What? What do you mean? Okay, so fraud alert is only good for 90 days. It's not 100% effective. The next choice, which is kind of a newer marketing kind of a gimmick that the credit bureaus have come up with, which is called a credit lock. A credit lock does the same thing as a credit freeze, except they either charge you a monthly fee for it, or by agreeing to sign up for it, you allow them to share their information for marketing purposes to third-party people who are constantly going to send you offers for credit. Okay? But a credit freeze, or it's also called a security freeze, same thing, just different terms. Security freeze, it prevents any new creditors from seeing the credit report. It does lock down your credit report. If someone tried to apply for, to get an apartment and they did a credit check, or if someone tried to apply for a credit card or a mortgage, they would not receive the credit report. If they can't get the credit report, are they going to open the account? No. That's the whole reason why they ask for it, because they want to know what kind of payer you are. So your best defense against new account fraud is a credit freeze or security freeze. Again, same thing, different terminology. Now, to set up a credit freeze, in the state of Florida, every state's different as far as the fees. In the state of Florida, it is a $10 fee per credit bureau to establish the credit freeze. Unless you are over the age of 65, and then it's free. It's free.
Well, that would include anybody in this room.
All right, see, I come bearing gifts, free things. So it is free. Now, to set it up, you have to contact each credit bureau individually. You don't call one and they do the other two. You have to contact each one. Okay? You can do it by phone, online, or by mail. My preference is online. Now you might think, well, now I'm putting all my information on the internet. Well, it's pretty much already out there. And the websites you're going to, they're as secure as they can be. You'll never hear me say anything is 100% safe. Everything has risk. Okay? I prefer the online method because it's faster and you get instant confirmation that it's done. When you set up a credit freeze, you will be assigned, or you can create a PIN number. That's between 6 and 12 digits for each credit bureau. And just because you're married, don't think if you do it under one spouse, you both are covered. You each have a different social. It's based on social security number. Okay? So you have to do each one. So if you're married, you got to do 6 of these, 3 and 3. Okay? That PIN number is what you use in the event you want to allow someone to see your credit report. So let's say you put a freeze on and then maybe a year or two down the road you decide, oh, I'm going to refinance, or oh, I can get a really good deal on a car if I do a finance and then I'll just pay it off in a couple months. Well, in order to do that, they need to see the credit report. So what you would have to do is find out which credit bureau they're going to get the report from, contact that bureau, and let the dealership or whomever you're dealing with, let them know that you have a freeze. They're becoming more and more familiar with this as more people do this. Okay? Find out which bureau, contact that bureau, tell them you want to temporarily lift the freeze. You're not removing it, you're just temporarily lifting it. You can tell them how many days you want it to be lifted. If you want, one day, if they're going to pull it right now, then just say 1 day. If maybe you're going to be out car shopping and you want to leave it open for a week or two, then leave it open for a week or two, whatever your choice. Then once that time frame expires, the lock goes back down. So it allows the report to go out when you authorize it. Okay? Any questions on that? All right, we'll go here and then I'll come to the front. Yes, in the back.
It costs me $10 each time I want to re-lock it.
Okay, very good question.
I didn't ask my age when I initially signed up.
Yeah, when you initially sign up, you have to fill out, name, address, date of birth, social, and they have to answer questions. And based on your date of birth, they determine your age. So that's how they know if you have to pay the fee or not. Now, the point she brought up is every time you lift it, you may have to pay a $10 fee. For the state of Florida, they can charge you $10 each time. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. I've worked with clients for more than 10 years, and we had one time where she needed to lift it with all 3 because they weren't sure what bureau they're going to use. 2 of them charged the fee, 1 didn't. Why? Couldn't tell you. Another thing, because of the Equifax breach, Equifax is no longer charging fees for setting up or lifting or removing. It is free for life. So it doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter how many times you want to lift it. It is free. That's from Equifax. That's part of after the breach. They're trying to get on your good graces again. Okay. The other 2, they do, they can charge that $10 fee. Okay, let me go back over here. Oh, that was your question?
Comment.
Okay,
Yeah.
What was your question?
If
sir?
you had a freeze with Equifax before this event, would it still be valid?
Yes, a freeze is permanent. Once you set it, it is permanent until you remove it. They can't take it off without your authorization, and if you'd set it up years ago, it's still there. It doesn't expire. That's the freeze. The fraud alert expires, the freeze does not. In the back, yes.
I tried with all three, and the only one I was successful in doing a freeze was TransUnion. The other two gave me some reason that it was not possible at the time.
Okay, it could be a couple of things. When they ask you the knowledge-based questions, the security questions, if you answer any of them incorrectly, you will get that message. So I would just wait a day and try it again. Or the other thing could be, especially if it was on the Equifax website, they are being so inundated right now with people trying to put a credit freeze on that sometimes their servers are crashing, meaning too many people are trying to do it at the same time. And that could have been another reason. I just set it up this morning for a client of mine who wanted to initiate the credit freeze, and we did it this morning with all three bureaus, no problem. So you may want to try it again.
Thank you.
Okay, right here.
Okay, so on the Equifax, if you were on a freeze, they asked you that series of private questions. Did that information get lost in the breach?
That's a very good question. In case you were in the back and you didn't hear, he asked the knowledge-based questions. When you go to try to set up the freeze, or when you try to get your credit reports, they ask you questions based on the credit report and other personal information to validate that it's you. His question was that information exposed? We don't know. Possibly. That information was possibly exposed as well. Okay? Yes.
When I froze mine, there was actually a fourth agency.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm glad you brought that up. There is another agency. It's a smaller agency. It's a Novus. INNOVIS. The other agencies, in case I did not mention them, there's TransUnion, Equifax, which we know about, and Experian. Those are the three in one, and then there's also Novus. There is another kind of credit bureau that nobody would ever tell you about. It's the NCTUE. I do have a tip sheet I'll be happy to send out, or I can send it to George and we can get it to everybody that has the information. This was created by the utilities industry so that they can, instead of having to rely on the credit bureaus all the time, they kind of started keeping track of their own. So, and it's not all utilities. It's not every power company, not every phone carrier uses this, but a lot of them do. So if you put a credit freeze in place with the main credit bureaus, but not this NCTUE, then somebody could obtain utilities, including a cell phone or landline account, using your information if they chose to do the credit report through this group as opposed to the main ones. Okay? So there is another one out there. Yes, sir.
What happens if I lose my PIN number?
What happens if you lose your PIN number? You're in trouble. No. If you lose your PIN number, you can recover it. The different bureaus have different procedures to do it. In the past, it used to be very easy. It was too easy. So now they've added to it. You'll either have to, by mail, show documentation proving your identity. They may ask you knowledge-based questions. It just depends on what their procedures are. Some of them are now starting to do where they will text a message to the phone number of record on the credit report, and then you have to tell them what that code that was texted. So they have different procedures. My advice, put that PIN number somewhere where you're not going to lose it, because it is becoming more and more difficult to recover your PIN number, which it should be. Okay, so make sure you put it somewhere secure. Let me go to this side, then we'll go back to the other room. Yes?
Are the knowledge-based questions where you supply the answer, or they know the answer already?
Knowledge-based questions are where they know the answer already.
So it's not, what's the name of your first parakeet?
Right. Those questions are security questions. Okay, they're a little bit different. So there's knowledge-based and security questions. Security questions, you're providing the answer. Whatever answer you give becomes the actual answer. The knowledge-based, it's based on information that's already been established about you. Now, you might think, how do these companies know all this information about me? Where do they get it? You know, just because it's a credit bureau, how do they know, you know, we lived in my house 10 years ago when they didn't have any credit bureaus to do with us? Data mining companies. People have been mining your information for years. LexisNexis is one of the oldest. It was the first data mining company in this country. And they started aggregating all this information because they saw the benefits of it, and they knew that organizations would want it. They knew that it would be beneficial and they could profit off of it. So there are tons and tons and tons of these organizations out there. So credit bureaus and all the companies you do business with, banks and credit cards and so on, they're buying access to your information. And when they're setting up these knowledge-based questions, they're contracting with these third-party data mining companies to provide those question and answers. Okay, so that's where it's coming from. Yes.
A step back, you mentioned that in Florida, if you're over 65, you don't have to pay for this, and I'm over 65, and my bank set me up, and I'm paying $7.99 a month for each account.
Okay, so the question was, I had mentioned in Florida, if you're over 65, it's free to set up a credit freeze, but he said his bank set him up and now they're charging him a monthly fee. They didn't do the credit freeze. What you signed up for was credit monitoring, an identity protection service.
Right.
All monitoring does, it tells you there's a problem.
Right.
It doesn't prevent the problem. Okay? So if you want to prevent the problem from happening in the first place, then I would go ahead and do the freeze, and that way you no longer have to pay that monthly fee.
Well, I did freeze them, so I was just going to cancel.
Yeah, no, but before you cancel, with some of these services, and we'll get into this and I'll get back to the other questions here. If you have a freeze in place, will there be changes to your credit report? So do you need to pay for credit monitoring? Question and answer.
Yes. No.
Most credit monitoring, all they're looking for are inquiries or changes on the credit part. Well, if you've locked it down, there shouldn't be any inquiries because they're not allowed to see the report. Okay? Now, I'm not telling you to drop any credit monitoring that you have. That is your choice. But contact them before you make a decision and say, what exactly do you monitor for? If they say we're monitoring for changes in name, address, phone number, or changes in any of your current accounts, then you may want to consider keeping it. But if they say, well, we monitor for any new inquiries, if you have a credit freeze, there won't be any. So you can shut it down. You don't have to pay for that extra service. So it depends on what the credit monitoring does. The word credit monitoring is very broad. You need to ask them to specify exactly what they monitor. Another thing with these services is some of them will offer restoration assistance. What that means is they're going to give you a do-it-yourself repair kit and you have to go do it yourself. Okay? Other ones will actually do full restoration. Now don't get too hung up on the terminology because they'll use them interchangeably. But with the full restoration, they do all the work on your behalf to fix your identity. The only way you'll know between the difference of which type you have is you ask the company, when I'm a victim, do I have to sign a limited power of attorney? If the answer is no, you're going to be doing the work yourself. The limited power of attorney allows the company to work on your behalf to fix the problem. That is the only way they can do it. Okay? So that's how you know what you're paying for. If it's a do-it-yourself repair kit, well, I can send you the information from the Federal Trade Commission's website, which is pretty much what they're sending you anyways, and it's free. Okay? So determine, what your end goal is before you get into those services. Yes?
I have, as a gift from my financial advisor, she's put Identiforce on my account. Is that a good one, or is that a...
Identity Force?
Yeah.
Yeah, that is one of the companies that I do like. Because they do offer the full restoration. When you're a victim, they do assign a case manager who does the work on your behalf. So
okay. Yes,
that is one of the ones that I do like. But again, and the only reason I like it is because in all the years companies have tried to get me to endorse them. And my question has always been, when someone's a victim, do they sign a limited power of attorney? That was one of the companies that actually answered yes.
What was the company name?
Identity Force. Yes, let me go back here and then I'll come to the front. Yes.
Yes, ma'am. Did I understand you to say that if you have a security freeze on Equifax, for example, that still does not protect you and your data from a security breach? Is that correct?
Say that one more time.
If I had a security breach with Equifax
Yes.
before the breach, does that protect my data from a breach?
Okay, no. Setting up a credit freeze does not protect your data from being used elsewhere. What it protects you from is new account fraud. There is no way to prevent your information from being exposed or from being used by other people. The best you can do is put barriers in place for certain types of usage to make it more difficult or impossible for them to use. Okay? But there's no way to prevent it 100%. My information was exposed in 2008 from a healthcare data breach. Someone can use my social right now and there's nothing I can do about it. So I just put things in place to make it more difficult because criminals are like everybody else. The path of least resistance. You want to do the easy one. So if you're an easy target, they're going to be all over you. But if you're more difficult, they're going to go to the easy guy. Okay? So you want to make yourself a difficult target by putting some of these barriers in place. And one of them is the credit freeze. Okay? Yes, sir.
I have on my auto insurance a rider that gives me money that they will pay if I hire you to do this and you do all the work. Is that a worthwhile $20 on it? It's not much.
Yes. Yes, thank you. I'm glad you brought that up. Another option too, as opposed to paying the monthly fees for these services, again, you got to look at what is the reason you want a service? What is the reason you're looking at these? If it's to protect you from becoming a victim, you're wasting your money. Nothing can do that. If you want a service that will tell you in the event that there's a problem so that way you can react fast to mitigate it, okay, fine. Then the credit monitoring might be worthwhile for you. If you want a company that's going to make the problem go away, meaning once you become a victim, they're going to fix it for you, then that could be a viable solution with these services as long as you have to sign the limited power of attorney. What he's talking about is the identity theft insurance policy. Quite often, you already have one and don't even know it. These policies were written as a rider policy to your homeowner's insurance. So go home and pull out your insurance policy. You might see something on there that says identity theft insurance, and you didn't even know you had it. If you don't have it, the policies range from about $25 to $60 per year and covers everyone in the entire household. So it's not a per month, per person fee. It is a one-time fee that covers everyone in the household. Now these policies are different. They vary because they're insurance, just like any other insurance. Some of them will, how much they cover up to, meaning the limits of the policy, can vary. Some I've seen might be, $1,500. Some of them I've seen could be, greater than that. Some will reimburse for out-of-pocket losses. Some of them will pay for a restoration service to fix the problem. Other ones, they do it in-house for you. They're all different. So call your agent and say, do I have a policy? And if they say yes, then say, send me the information. What does it cover? What's included? What's excluded? What does it do? So that way you can decide if you need to pay for another service or not. Because a lot of times people pay money for something that they already have. And they're already paying for it and didn't even know it. Okay? Yes?
You use the term credit freeze and security freeze. Are they synonymous?
Yes. Yep. Credit freeze, security freeze, exact same thing, just different terminology. Yes?
I don't understand how, if you have a credit freeze or security freeze in place, how a credit monitoring company can determine what changes are being made to your credit report.
They really can't. If you have the freeze, then they technically cannot get access to even see the report, therefore they can't really monitor it. So, yes. Yes. Now, some of them might have agreements because, for example, all of the 3 credit bureaus do offer credit monitoring. Well, even though you have the freeze, because it is in fact their same company, then they can monitor for that one company only. Okay? That's the other thing too about with the credit freeze. Don't think that, oh, I'll just do it on one credit bureau. I'll just lock down Equifax because that was breached. I don't need to worry about the other 2. Wrong. Not every creditor reports to all 3 bureaus. You could have one credit report that's 10 pages long. Another one that's, the other one could be 2 pages, and the other one could be 5 pages long. If you're only locking down one, accounts could be opened using the other 2 credit bureaus. Because when you apply for a loan or when a criminal applies for a loan, we don't know which credit report or credit bureau they're going to pull it from. And if it's the one that's not locked down, that account's going to be open. So you need to do with all 3. Yes, sir?
How long does this freeze last?
Until you take it off. A freeze is permanent until you remove it. Yes, sir.
So if you're gonna buy a car and you want to take the freeze off, oh, that's a chance,
Okay, I know where you're going though. Are you going to finish it for you?
Yeah.
Okay, so this question is, if I'm going to go buy a car and I have a freeze in place, what do I do? Okay, a couple different things. If you already know the car that you want to buy, then just contact the dealership and say, I have a credit freeze in place. I have to lift it before you can look at my credit. Which bureau do you use? Where are you going to pull my report from? And then once they tell you, you contact their bureau, provide your PIN number, tell them how long you want to lift it. And to do this lifting, you can do it online or by phone. Either way, online is quicker. Phone, sometimes you might be on hold for a while, but you can do it either way. So that way you can do it. Now if you don't know, let's say you're going to go car shopping and you don't really know what you're looking for, do the work yourself. It has been documented victims spend between 200 to 300 hours trying to recover. And I know this to be true because usually people call me after about 9 months of frustration. They're like, I'm done, you do it. I don't want to do it anymore. Okay? And the reason there's so much time is because this is new to you. You don't know what the laws are, you don't know what your rights are, and you don't know how the process works. So when you work with a restoration company or someone who's experienced in this, they can get it done much faster. Because again, I've had people, they've spent 9 months doing it, and usually in a matter of a couple days, everything gets resolved because we know how it's supposed to work, okay? If you are going to hire an attorney, or if your accountant says, I'll take care of it for you, ask them, how many of these have you done? How many clients have you helped? Because a lot of times people think, oh, it's an easy process, I'll take care of it. If they've never done it before, it can be a lot more complicated than they originally anticipated. And also ask them to give you a ballpark, because if there's a company that's been doing it for quite some time, they should be able to tell you, based on your situation, about how many hours it should take to complete that project. Now, things might pop up throughout, and if that's the case, then they should contact you and say, we found another issue, this is how long it's going to take. But just don't go to a company and say, yeah, I'll pay the hourly rate, and then you end up with this ridiculous bill at the end. So ask those questions up front. Yes, up here.
2 questions. One, you do that? You help people?
Yeah, there are a couple different ways it can be done. Through the Identity Fraud Institute at Hodges, we do offer free victim assistance. That time is limited to an hour. The reason being is right now, it's just me. And I get at least 3 to 5 calls and emails from victims a week. And right now, it's taking me about a week to almost 2 weeks to follow up with everyone. So we're looking eventually to expand that program. Hopefully we'll be doing some fundraising here in this next year so that we can bring on more victims or partner with other organizations so that they can offer these services because the demand is just too great. Through my company, Kerskie Group, we do offer the restoration services, yes, and we can help.
Because even though I've had another, I think, important point is, even if you've had your credit frozen, which I have for 5 or 6 years, people still tried but did not succeed in opening a mortgage. They went in and changed my social security number, my email address to charge it Saks Fifth Avenue, and I caught it. But anyway, and my second question was, if you have dormant, on your credit report, dormant credit card accounts, how do you get rid of them? Is it necessary to, or should you just forget about them?
Good question. That's one I get asked a lot. If you would just look at it this way, the more credit accounts you have, the more opportunities for risk for something happening. Okay? I'm not telling you to close any dormant accounts. I'm not telling you, only have these many types of, this number of credit cards. It's up to you. Okay? But just know the more credit cards you have out there, or the more credit accounts, those are more things you have to monitor and keep on top of so that you can detect when something happens so you can report it. Because you are protected by federal law, but it's only for a certain number of days. So if there's any fraudulent transactions in credit accounts, you must report it within 60 days of the statement to which the discrepancy occurred. So if you have 20 different accounts and you're not looking at them all the time, if something comes in and you miss it and it's beyond the 60 days, now that's your liability. You have to pay for that. Okay? So you make that decision. If you do want to close it, and I know, when you close accounts, it could have a negative impact on your credit score, but if you're not applying for any loans, so what? And it's not a permanent decline, okay? The other thing is when the creditors look at your credit report, they're going to see on there either closed by consumer or closed by creditor. Closed by consumer looks a heck of a lot better than closed by creditor, because that means you closed it, but the company didn't close it. So they take these things into consideration as well. But the choice is up to you. To close it, you would need to contact the creditor directly and just tell them you would like to close the account. And make sure you ask for something in writing to verify the account has been closed. When you look at the credit reports, it might show closed on one bureau's report and could still show open on the other two. That's just because the timing of how long the information gets to the other bureaus. Okay? Let me go in the back and then I'll come up to the front again.
How do you find out if you are a victim of identity theft?
Oh, good question. How to find out if you're a victim. Sometimes people can be a victim for years and not even know it. There's different types of identity theft. Obviously, if somebody's using your credit card or your bank account, that's really easy. You look at your statement, you see something on there, you report it, problem gets resolved, okay? If somebody's applying for a new loan, you get notified, and if you're looking at the credit reports, if you don't have a freeze, you'd see that on there. Or you'd get the credit card showing up at your house that you did not ask for. That's a big one that I've been seeing lately happening here in Collier County. Where I get calls from people going, I just got an American Express card and I didn't apply for it, but my name's on it. That's a big one that's happening. If it's involving medical identity theft, when someone uses your identity for medical services, you may never know. The only way you'd really find out is if they didn't pay the bill, and that bill went into collections, then you'd be contacted by a collection agency. Or if you look at your explanation of benefits or your benefits summary statements, you might see that you were charged for something that you did not receive or you did not do. When it comes to the IRS, the only way you'd find out is when you file your tax return and the IRS tells you, we already got one. Okay? I mean, there's so many types of identity theft out there. Criminal identity theft, you may never know unless someone does a criminal background check on you, or if the police show up at your house with a warrant for your arrest. And I've had clients where that's happened. One guy had his house surrounded by federal marshals with a warrant for his arrest because the person using his identity was really bad. And he had no idea until they showed up that day. And so it's very difficult. The best thing I can tell you, your best defense is monitoring. Monitor your statements, bank statements, credit cards. Don't put them in a box and give them to your accountant at the end of the year. When that statement comes in the mail, you go through it with a fine-tooth comb. Don't just skim it. Go through it and make sure every single transaction is yours. Because if not, if you wait till the end of the year, that's your liability. That's on you. Okay? Let me go in the back here, then I'll come over to you. Yes, sir. You had a question?
No, I was just going to make a comment that basically, when you close a credit card account, it affects your credit score.
Right.
It's crazy. I mean, so if you leave them open, then if you don't use them, then apparently it shows that you have the ability to use that money, so you have more credit available to you, and you're not taking advantage of it, so it's better. But I tried closing a couple of credit card accounts on those. I work with the company that owns those unions, and the CFO told me, he said, don't do that. It will affect the credit score.
It will, but like I said, if you're not going to be applying for a loan, so what? If you have all the credit you could ever want in your entire life and you know you're not going to be getting any more, who cares about your score? The only one who uses the score are the banks, or sometimes for insurance. Don't buy into this marketing hype about you have to know your score, you have to know your score. If you have all the credit you could ever want and you're in good shape, don't worry about it.
Freeze.
Just know what's on it. Freeze it. Exactly. Let me go to the front here, then I'll go to the back.
What happens when you move? As far as in Florida, the credit freezes are free. If you move out of state, what happens?
Good question.
And what happens to your address when you move from here to there? How do you report that?
So if you are moving, you don't have to notify the credit bureaus. They will be notified by the Postal Service. That's one of the places where they aggregate information from, is the Postal Service. So when you notify the post office that you're moving, that information will get reported up to the credit bureau. You don't have to contact them. Okay? Unless if you're going to be doing something during that time frame where they need to make sure that that address is on there. As far as with the credit freeze, if you have it in place and then you move to another state, it doesn't matter what those state's fees are. during that time frame. The only time that would come into play is when you go to do the temporary lift, then you'd be subject to that state's fees, if there are any, to do the temporary lift. But you don't get charged because you set it up in one state and then you move to another state and you have to pay another fee to set up. No, once you set it up, it is set up. And there's no additional fees. I mean, you could set it up right now, and if you never have to lift it, it won't cost you ever a penny. You never have to pay a fee.
How safe are these medical portals that every doctor wants you to have?
How safe are the medical portals? Nothing is safe. Everything has risk. But you need to choose if you're willing to accept the risks. So when it comes to that, some of them I like using. I know that there's a risk that the information could be compromised. But I also like the convenience of being able to monitor my medical record to make sure there's nothing in there that shouldn't be there. So I'm willing to accept that risk for me so that I can have the benefit of knowing what's in there. You might not be that way. You might say, I don't need that. I'll just get copies of the paper records. It's up to you. It's your choice. But just know what the benefits are, know what the risks are, and then you decide what's best for you. Because everything you do has risk. When you're trying to get the credit reports, it doesn't matter if you do it by phone, by mail, or online. Everything has risk. We know the online risks. What's the risk by phone? What can happen if you call the credit bureau and you ask for your credit report by phone? What can happen?
They're recording it?
Well, the person that you're talking to on the other end could be writing it down. And then she goes home that night and files a fake tax return. You have no control over that. Or she could be collecting them from the day's worth of conversations and selling them to some ring in Russia. Who knows? Okay? What's the risk by mail? Somebody getting a hold of it from your mailbox to that end mailbox. It goes through a lot of hands. And somebody could intercept it. So everything has risk. You just need to choose which risk you're willing to accept. Let me go in the back, then I'll come up to you. Yes?
Where does the Discover Card Company get their credit report information that they include with your monthly statement?
I don't know the answer to that. I'm not familiar with them. You would have to find out from them directly. Any of these companies that do offer the free credit reports or free credit scores, you need to ask them. Is it one bureau or is it's called tri-bureau or three-bureau? That means all three. You need to ask these questions because if not, you might think you're looking at the big picture, but you're only looking at a fraction of it. Okay? Yes, sir.
I've noticed in the past couple of years that a couple of retail outlets have gone from their own proprietary credit card to the major label credit cards. In other words, for example, Penny just switched from their own credit card to MasterCard. Is that a loss in security or a gain in security for me as a...
It poses a greater risk because before that card could only be used at that store. Now that card can be used anywhere. Okay, so that's the risk, that if somebody steals that card or that number, instead of them now, in the past only being able to use it as, for example, at JCPenney's.
Mm-hmm.
Now they can use it anywhere that accepts MasterCard or American Express.
Costco does
Okay? Yeah, same with Costco. They used to have the American Express, now it's the Citi card. Okay? As far as security and if they're going to respond to any fraudulent transactions or anything like that, they're all pretty much the same. But it's just there's that extra layer of risk in there because the card can be used anywhere and it can be used online. Okay? Now, real quick before I forget, and then I'll get to the questions. What's better to use, a credit card or a credit/debit card?
Credit card.
Credit card. Why?
Protected.
Well, you're protected for both. If there's fraudulent transactions from your debit card, the bank has to make you whole as long as you report it within usually 30 to 60 days.
The protection
With
on
the
a credit card is longer.
Not necessarily. You only have 60 days. So it's always the
Access to
same.
your money.
They can drain your
There you go. Whose money's getting stolen? Yours or the bank?
Yes.
If it's credit card, it's the bank's. If it's a debit credit card, it's yours. And you have to wait for it to be put back. You will be reimbursed as long as you report it within the time frame. Okay, and the time frames are established by the bank. So contact your bank or brokerage account and ask them, what the time frame is. The other thing is, for Regulation E, they can take up to 90 days to put the money back. Do you want to give them 90 days of holding on to your money? No. No, so use the credit card. What was that?
Overdraft.
They do not have to reimburse for overdraft fees. After the Target breach, there was a man here locally, he was exposed during that, his debit card. They not only depleted his account, but when all of his auto pays came in, he racked up $1,600 worth of overdraft fees, and the bank did not refund those. It's right here.
Carrie, I have, like a debit card I don't want, and like Wells Fargo said, you had to have it in the group. But what you could do is go in and have them put a debit card value of $1.
Yes.
And anything goes in there, it's just gonna kick it out unless it's $1. But they had to have it with the credit card.
On the debit card.
Right.
Yeah.
So what he said is his bank, and you can ask questions. Ask questions. We're afraid to ask questions. People give us stuff, we're like, okay, I guess that's just how it is. No, ask questions. So he got a debit credit card in the mail, and he didn't want the debit access to it, but that was part of the package. So he went and talked to his bank and said, what do I do? What are my options? And they said they can make that card, the value of it, only $1. So there could never be a transaction for more than $1 on that card.
On the debit.
On the debit part of it. Okay, so that's an option. Okay, now I'm not telling you not to use your debit cards. You can use them if you want. I'm just telling you what the risks are, and then you choose what's best for you. Yes?
When the debit cards are used for drive-up ATM and things like that, if that's okay, that the value of the card is one thing. If you use it to put money in or take money out of your account, is fine, yes?
Well, when you're using the debit card anywhere, even with ATMs, because there can be skimmers on ATMs. The skimmers can be on the gas pumps, they can be pretty much anywhere now. And they're micro skimmers, you would never detect it with the naked eye. And the whole thing of, oh, poo on it, see if it comes off. Nothing's gonna come off. They're sophisticated now. You would never know that it's there. Okay, you can't see them with the naked eye. But again, if you want to use your debit card, fine. Just monitor your statements. And don't wait 30 days for the paper statement to come in the mail. If you're going to actively be using your debit card, sign up for either online access to your bank account or use the app. So that way you can monitor your transactions in real time. The sooner you report it, the faster that money gets put back in your account. Now, I know you're probably thinking, why would I want to have online access? Because it's just going to increase my risk of being a victim. That's the old thinking. If you're not online, you have a greater chance of becoming a victim. I know it sounds crazy, but it's true. Because if you're not marking your territory online, you leave it wide open for someone else to do it on your behalf. If I want to set up online access to your bank account, and you don't already have online access, all I have to do is call your bank with name, address, date of birth, and social, yours. Now I verify the identity. Yes, I would like online access, please. Sure, what's your email address? I give an email address. We're going to send you a link, follow the instructions, and you have online access now. I've had multiple clients where the bank accounts were drained or taken over by that simple process. It's really just that easy. Now, if you don't own a computer, which I know you do, that's why you're in this group, otherwise you wouldn't be here. If you're not comfortable with that, call your bank, call your credit card company, and tell them, I don't want any part of this online access stuff. How can you protect me? Sometimes they'll let you set up a security question, or maybe it's a PIN number. But security questions, don't answer them using real answers. Now remember the knowledge base, they know the answer, so you have to give the right one. Security questions, you're creating the answer. Don't use real ones. Now you're thinking, great, now I gotta remember fake answers. How am I gonna do that? Okay, here's a trick. Do a one-off. Instead of answering them based on you, answer them based on how your spouse would answer them. Answer them how your child would answer them. Answer how your favorite movie character or book character, whatever the case might be. That way all you have to remember is who's my one-off, who's my key. How would that person answer it? Okay? Because criminals think we're dumb. You ask a question, we give an answer. Okay? We weren't raised to not trust people. We were raised to trust people. Okay? And And they know that, and they take advantage of it. Somebody asks us a question, we give the right answer. We follow that along. You throw that curveball in there of having a one-off, now you just made it more difficult for them to use you as opposed to somebody else. Okay? Yes?
Two things. The first is just advocate for yourself. With both Wells Fargo and Sun, they kept insisting I had to have, if I wanted an ATM, it had to be the debit credit. And I said, I want an old-fashioned ATM, and I'll move to another bank if not. And once I said that, I have regular old-fashioned ATM cards with both banks. And the other thing I wanted to mention is when you have identity theft, one of the things that you're offered from the state of Florida is to put a password on your driver's license. But one of the things they don't tell you, and most people don't know, including the State Department and the Department of Homeland Security, is that transfers to your passport. And when you try to come back into the country, you get pulled by security to a private room. And you can't use your TSA secure number, you can't use mobile entry, you can't use any of that. You can't even print a boarding pass,
Right.
except at the airport. And you're held up, escorted by security, because I've been there, to give that password.
Yeah.
And I had no idea. I mean, fortunately, I realized that, that it was the one from my driver's license. And
Yeah, I'm not a fan of that program with the
No.
driver's license because most criminals, they're not going to go to the DMV to get a driver's license with your information. They're going to order one from China. It's called a novelty ID. If you don't believe me, do an internet search for novelty ID. It will blow your mind. You will have nightmares. You can go online, and actually I was doing a segment on this with one of the news channels. And so while she was in my office, we were looking up novelty IDs, and we went to one of the sites because I was showing her how easy it was. And on this site, they even showed you how to take the picture so it looked like an actual DMV picture. I mean, had everything, the dimension, how to do it all. But the funny thing was on it, they had a 2-for-1. It was a flash sale. Buy one, get one. I'm like, yeah, $100. You get 2 driver's license. And don't believe this whole thing about the new driver's license that Florida is going to be rolling out. They already know how to do all the technology on the new driver's license. My mind just went blank. The UV ink, they've already manufactured, they're already doing that. You name it, it's already being done. And because this driver's license is going to be rolled out over a period of time, by the time everyone has one, they're already going to be counterfeiting them. Okay? So I'm not a big fan of that program with the pin on the DMV because it does cause a lot more headaches than you could ever imagine. And it's not going to prevent crime because they'll just go online and order a fake one.
Can you find the PIN?
Oh, yeah.
Well, yeah, you don't have to put the PIN. It's just if you're a victim of identity theft, it's one of you'll get a package when you report it to law enforcement. You usually get a package of here's some recommended steps, and that's thrown in there. And I usually tell people just throw that one away because don't even bother with that because it can be more headaches than. And I've still seen people, even though they have the PIN, the criminal goes and gets a fake one online and they're out using it. So it didn't deter anything.
Can I come to you and you can help me freeze my account?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I usually do the fraud alert every 3 months, and I prefer that over the lock because the lock's a little more involved. And my question is, I'd like to do that for 7 years. And keep on saying, well, you got to fill out a police report that you've had fraud and so on. Well, I've had fraud over the years, but I can't say when I've had it. Is there a way I can circumvent that or just fill out something?
No, the only way to have that 7-year extension is if you're a documented victim of identity theft with a police report or active military. The only way you get that 7-year extension.
So the fact that somebody has breached and stolen $150 million IDs, and I'm one of them, doesn't count as a fraudulent activity.
No, it has to be for identity theft in order to get that 7-year extension. But don't buy into the credit freeze as being this difficult thing. But again, you choose what's best for you. Just know the risks versus the rewards. It's more work of every 3 months having to go in and activate it, and there is still a chance that a fraudulent account could be opened even though you have a fraud alert. I've had clients that happen. Okay? So just as long as you understand that, but I'm not telling you that you have to do one over the other.
Well, for the freeze, you got to contact all 3 agencies, and that's what's sort of the thing.
To set it
It's
up,
not
I
much.
did it this morning for a client, it took me 15 minutes for all
No,
three.
to get it unlocked for all three.
You go online, it takes less than 5 minutes. I had one of my clients where I manage everything for them. They actually have me on annual retainer, and he forgot that he had a freeze. And so he called me from the car dealership, and he goes, hey, they had this great deal on this car, and this, whatever. And he said, I forgot I had that thing on my credit, and they can't pull my report. And I said, ask him what credit bureau. And he told me, and I said, hang on. So I pulled out his file, and I went online, entered the freeze, and I said, it's lifted. He told the guy, and he said, okay, we got the report.
Is it free to get that lifted in Florida?
No.
They can charge you up to a $10 fee every time you lift it, but Experian is free for life. There is no fee for that. Another option, remember we talked about the credit lock, because the freeze is when you set up the whole thing and you do it yourself. The lock is when you're telling the credit bureau to manage the freeze on your behalf. You can pay a fee to them. TransUnion, I do, because it was a newer thing, so again, I make myself a guinea pig. I signed up for it today. Now I'm going to get all kinds of junk mail. But they do have a free credit lock system where you can go online and you can set up the freeze using their service. And if you want to lift it, you log back into your account and you take it off. You take the lock on and off. It's, almost instant, for managing it. But the exchange is, if you're doing the free option, you allow them to send you credit card offers and such. So if you don't mind getting the increased junk mail, either in your email or your regular mailbox, then that might be another in-between option. So you have the protection of the freeze and the instantaneous management of it. So, check out the programs. They're doing a lot of different things. There's actually a petition going around right now. It was created by the CEO of the Identity Theft Resource Center in California, where we're trying to mandate that the credit bureaus should not be allowed to charge you for setting up and for temporarily lifting the freeze. It is your information, and you should have the right to be in charge of what happens with it and who gets access to it. And the fact that they're making money off of this is obscene. So I'm hoping now, because this breach impacted so many people, especially people in DC, that maybe things will change, because that industry's been pretty much unregulated for quite some time. Yes?
Now, two-factor authentication has been raised in the past several years. It's now become problematical with the SMS texting, which is open to fraud itself. What's your take on the new secondary fobs, apps, and so on to get better two-factor authentication?
My opinion, multi-factor authentication is better. The best would be something you have, something you are, something you know. But if we did that, people would complain because it would no longer be convenient. Privacy, convenience. You can't have both. You got to choose what you're giving up to have the other one. Okay. The two-factor authentication, where that's becoming a problem, is that these companies are not explaining it. They're not telling people what it is and why they're doing it. They're just pushing it out. People don't understand it. And so it's allowing criminals to come in and actually use it for their benefit. So two-factor authentication is when you log into your account online, it will send you a text message or an email. Okay? But most people don't understand how that works. It's usually instantaneous. Now, a way to prevent the fraud, because you can have the smishing, which is like phishing, but via text message. So let's say you got that message and you're like, well, I didn't just log into my account. And you go to click on that text message, or you call that phone number in it. Don't do that. Don't do that. It's just like getting an unsolicited email. Don't click on it. Oh, it's perfect music. We kind of planned that better. That was perfect. When you get the text message, and it wasn't because you just logged in and now you're getting it. If out of the blue you get this, log into your account, and if there is an issue, you'll find out, or call the company. Same thing if you got an email saying, hey, we've detected changes, or the one now for the iCloud, the scam, the phishing email for the iCloud. There's a problem with your account, you need to log in, or we reset your password, or whatever the case might be. You won't just click on the link in it. You're going to go to your account, you're going to log in, and you're going to find out if there's a problem, or you call the company. So it's kind of that you use the same steps, but people seem to think that the more authentication is involved, that's a less the job that we have to do. No. You have to be an active participant. You can't just sit back and say, oh, I'll let somebody else handle it, or I'll let that company handle it, or, oh, they're monitoring, I don't have to look at it. Wrong. It's still you, it's your information. You should be a willing, active participant, making sure everything's okay. Let me come up to the front here, we'll do one more, and then I know we're out of time.
We're running out of time.
Okay, oh, let me do him first, he had his hand up for a long time here.
If you have a wife or a husband or a life partner who is not computer savvy, what steps can one take that in case the one who is computer savvy is protected, somehow the other side is protected?
Okay.
These people look through the obituaries.
Yes, very good question. So his question was, what if you have, it could be a life partner, spouse, whatever the case might be, and one's computer savvy and the other is not. And the one who's computer savvy passes away, now the one who's never touched a computer, they have to deal with all this online stuff. First thing, usernames and passwords, you should have them in a secure location, but make sure the other person knows about them, knows where they are. Because even though they might not do things the online method, that information might be necessary for them to be able to do what they need to do. So have these conversations. I know a lot of times people don't want to talk about the D word, but you need to have the conversation. You need to do this now, because in the event something happens afterwards and it's like, what's a password? I don't know, where do we get them? I have no idea. Have these conversations. The other thing too I want to talk about real quick as far as when a loved one passes, you need to make sure you're notifying the credit bureaus. We have a sample letter. In the event you need it, let me know. Get a hold of me, or if you need it now, just give me your information. I'll be happy to send it to you. You need to notify the credit bureaus because people assume that when someone passes away, the credit bureaus are going to be notified right away. They're not. Social Security doesn't notify them. Your bank doesn't notify them. The credit card companies, by the time they report it, it could be a year, 2, 3 years later. Or they might just say the account was closed, but they don't explain the reason why. So you need to make sure you're notifying the credit bureaus, and they will label that credit report as a deceased report so that no damage can be done. It's referred to as ghosting, using the identity of someone who's deceased. Okay, so those are some steps. In the obituary, please be very careful about what you put in there, because that is a treasure trove for identity thieves. I know you want to honor the person by, explaining everything that they have done and all their accomplishments, but you could be putting that person or the rest of the family at risk for identity theft, especially mothers' maiden names. They're in there all the time. Okay, so just think about these things. If you have questions, I'll be happy to hang around afterwards, or we might have to go outside if they need the room, but thank you very much. I appreciate it.